Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're doing video number, I don't know which one, for pre-algebra goal 1. We've spent a lot of the time talking about fractions in the last video, and now we're finally going to start getting into decimals. Students always tell me that they find decimals easier. I am not that person, I'm going to be honest with you. Decimals actually bother me a heck of a lot more than fractions do. But we're going to go through, cover some basics, talking about just decimals as a concept, and then in the next video we'll round it off and finish goal 1 by talking about decimal addition and subtraction. So to begin, we're going to scroll down. I feel like this was a middle school thing, and it might well have been something that you guys got right on your initial knowledge check, but you know, I don't know what you guys are testing into, so I'm going to cover everything. We already know that we have 100 small squares cut into equal size, and we got to figure out what percent is going to be shaded. So what part of it is a fraction, and how do you write it as a decimal? The good news is that if you're decent with your times tables, this actually becomes low-key kind of easy. Because if we know that this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, this is actually, in effect, a 10 by 10 grid. And what that means is every column of numbers is going to be 10 blocks. So what I have now to make it easier, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. It's 70 something. And now how much is left over? 3. Knowing that, it's going to be, the decimal, of course, your kids are going to tell me is going to be easier. That's just 0.73. Huzzah, happy days. The fraction is going to be 73 out of, how many squares are here total? 100. Similarly here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's going to be 40 something. How many boxes are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0.46. The fraction will be 46 over 100. And my brain already wants to simplify that to be 23 over 50. And here's going to be a question for you guys in the actual software. Will it accept the 46 over 100? I kind of think that it will, because this is more of an introduction, but my brain just wants to auto-simplify my fractions. Anyway, now we're going to talk, we're comfortable with what the fractions mean as decimals, and now we're going to talk about place value. We talked about this, I think, in the very first video I did, where you have like the 10,000s place or the millions place. The same thing kind of happens with your decimals. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't think we'll need to do 5. So on the other side of the decimal, you can immediately start in the ones place. That doesn't happen here. We actually start at the tenths place, and then we just keep going up from there. So one decimal place is tenths. You always have to add that THS, which is hard for me. Then you have the hundredths. Then you have the thousandths. 10,000ths, 10,000ths, and so on and so forth. So when you're looking at a decimal kind of here, the two most common ones are obviously the tens and the hundred place, and they're actually low-key expecting you to know what those things are. So you have the tenths place. Tenths place is your first decimal place. So your tenths place is going to be your 9. Hundredths place is the one after that. So your hundredths place is going to be a 0. Let's make my mouse a little thinner. Digits in the tens place, not without the th, so that's going to be the 6. And then the tenths place, this one does have the th, so that's on the other side of the decimal point. So your tenths is going to be your 3. I think we do something similar over here. We have the ones place, that's going to be the 5. And then you have the tenths place, which is right next, God, I can't spell, Lord in heaven. Tenths place, I still can't spell, good Lord, what is it with me want to write a th, I wonder. There we go. Tenths place, which is right on the other side of the decimal, and that's going to be the 8. Tens place, so that's without the ths, so that's going to be the 8. And then you have the tenths place with the th, and that's going to be the 1, because that's the one immediately after the decimal. So now we have a little bit understanding of the basics, and now we're going to talk about decimal place value. Again, hundredths to 10,000ths. So let's see here. Find the digits in the ones place, the hundredths place, and the 10,000ths place. Okay, so we have the ones. That's going to be very obviously the 4. Hundredths is your second decimal place. It's like in cents, so that's going to be here. The 1. Now 10,000ths, even for a trained math teacher, I don't know that immediately off the top of my head, so I'm just going to quickly do a doodle. So there's my decimal, so there's our tenths, then our hundredths. Those I don't need a doodle for. There's our thousandths, and then there's our 10,000ths. So that's going to be our 1, 2, 3, 4th decimal place. So if I'm looking for the 1, 2, 3, 4th decimal place, this is going to be a 3. And that's how you identify it. Tens place, that's pretty easy because that's on the correct side of the decimal. Tenths place is on the other side of the decimal. It's worth remembering it's the one right after the decimal, so it's going to be 5. 10,000ths, I didn't know immediately, so it's the 1, 2, 3, 4th decimal. What's the 4th decimal here? It's going to be 8. And that's how you're going to be identifying your numbers. And I think that's everything for place value. Now, writing a decimal number less than 1, given its name. So write the following in its standard decimal form. And hundredths, again, it gives you away. It tells you how many decimal place are you? 58, because it's 2 decimal places. There's my tenths place. There's my hundredths place. 18 hundredths, so we have the 18, tens place, hundredths place, so everything matches. What I'd like to see is if they give you something like 18 thousandths. 18. I can't spell. God, my English teacher is rolling over. 18 thousandths. Let's talk about that one for a second because I don't immediately see it here. So we have the 18 thousandths. Let's see here. We have the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So that's actually in the 3rd position, which means we have the 0 in front of it to have 0.018. We'll see if that pops up in any of the others. Let's see here. 16 hundredths. Hundredths is 2 decimal places, so we have our 16. And then write the following number in standard decimal form. That's 2 tenths. Tenths is 1 decimal place, so we're going to have the 2. All right. Now writing a decimal greater than 1 given its name. So now we know there's going to be numbers on both sides of the decimal. So you have your and, generally speaking, is where your decimal point kind of lies. So knowing that means then that you know how to at least start your number. 3 and, 15 and, 12 and, 15 and. Now it's just a matter of figuring out your decimal. Hundredths is 1, 2 decimal places, and we have 96. Let's see here, 9 hundredths, so hundredths is 2 decimal places. There's the 9, and then we need a 0 for a placeholder. 9 hundredths, so hundredths is 2 decimal places. There's the 9. Curiously, again, we're having those repetitive numbers problems in my videos, this goal. I don't know why. And now we have 25 hundredths. Hundredths is 1, 2 decimal places, and then we're going to dump in the number 25. So far, so good. Reading a decimal on a number line, this is the tenths place. Okay, so what is the position of C? So we were talking about this before, but the fact that we have the tenths place already kind of gives it away. But in case they didn't actually tell us this, so let's assume, for example, that they didn't actually give us this, and we had to figure out, so what's the fraction? I didn't understand anyway. So we're going to count our spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we know that this is out of 10. The next question is how many notches in are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 8 notches in out of 10. This is 8 tenths, and because it's tenths, we can write it as a decimal as 0.8. What is the location over here? Let's see here. Now that we know this is going to be in tenths, and it's worth erasing it. We know it's going to be in tenths. So we have, it's after the 1, so it's 1 point something, and it's only one notch over, so 1.1. Reading the decimal, and now we have hundredths, and you can kind of see how this works in the sense that you have the 2.9, and then even though you're making a huge jump, you're only going over to 3.1. So what that means is your number line has been zoomed in by quite a bit, and now we're looking, so that's, if that's 2.9 and that's 3, that's 2, this is going to be 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, and so on and so forth. So when we're looking at this, that is 2.99. I gave away my number. Same thing over here, 7.9, and then even though it's visually a huge jump to 8.1, you know, it's not that big of a jump because there's 8 smack in the middle. So what this means now is we're counting how many notches over. So it's 8.0 something because it's not quite yet to 8.10. And now how many notches over? 1, 2, 3, 4. 8.04. That's what they're expecting you to do for this. Okay. Again, continuing on with our decimal basics. Now we want to do some ordering. I actually was teaching a student this a couple of days ago, and they had a little bit of trouble kind of understanding it. So what I like to do, visually, you can kind of see, some of them are going to be kind of easy. So if I'm looking at 8 versus 2, that one's pretty obvious which is which. When I'm looking here at the 9 and then the 07, I like to put them on top of each other. So 0.9 and then 0.07. And anytime there's a blank space, so you see how here there's a blank space, I'm going to put in a 0. And then, here's a shock. I'm just going to erase the decimals for a second, and I'm going to look at them. Which one is bigger, 90 or 7? And then the 0.9 is bigger. That's a little trick that I use to make the math a little bit better for me. Look, same thing over here. We have the 5.76 versus the 5.27. If I just visually erase my decimals for a second, which one is bigger? 576 is bigger. Over here, we have 68 versus 62. The 68 is bigger. This one is a little bit tricky. So we have the 7.70, and then we have 7.7, and we're going to put in a 0 as a placeholder, and oh no, it's the same fraction. Fraction, what the heck? It's the same decimal. Oh, I'm going to live that one down. Sure I am. But because they're equivalent, we can use an equal sign. This one over here, we have the 0.05. Nope, no we don't. No we don't. I can't read. Oh my lord. We have 0.5. There we go. And then 0.07. I'm going to put a 0 there. I'm going to erase my decimals. And what do I have? 50 or 7? Which one is bigger? The 0.5. Same thing over here, 0.06 and then 0.3. I'm going to put the 0 there as the placeholder. Compare 6 and 30. The 30 is bigger, so 0.3 is bigger. 188 versus 900, that's obviously going to be bigger. This one, 1.6 versus 1.60. Well, I need a placeholder, and oh no, they're the same. Over here, I have 76 versus 19. 76 is bigger. Let's see here. 1 point something versus 6 point something. The 6 is obviously bigger. Now the other one, 8.01 versus 8.7. And I'm going to put in my 0 as a placeholder, and I'm going to erase my fractions. Which one is bigger? The 870. So that's the one that gets the bigger answer. Let's see here. A couple more. And now this one really starts to throw kids because now it's listed all horizontally and it's not written in a way that makes sense. So again, I'm going to do this vertically and visually. There, I can talk. So we have 3.86, 3.8, and I need the 0. Then 5.726, which means I need a couple of more zeros. 3.806. 2. Oh Lord, they're giving us a lot of zeros here. What are they doing? Prominently. All right, and now that I have them all lined up and matching, again, I'm going to erase the zeros really quickly. And what is my smallest number? That one. So 3.8062. What is my next smallest number? Oh, nope, I stand corrected. See, even Mr. Block can make a mistake sometimes. There's a number smaller than that because that read as a 5 to me because apparently I can't write, gosh darn it. Okay. So the 3 point, oh my lord, Ms. Dubois, write decently. 3.8 becomes my smallest number because nothing, look at my 8,000 versus 8,062. The 8,062 is what's going to cinch it and tip it over. 062, so 3 and, let's see if I can read this. 8,062 10,000ths. God, what an awkward way to word it. What's my next biggest number? The 3.86, because 86 is bigger than 80, yada, yada, yada. And then 5.7 obviously is the bigger number, 5.726. All right, now next set, we have 2.806, 4.45, and we need the placeholder, 2.86 placeholder, 2.900 placeholder. And now that they're all written in, I'm going to erase the decimals. What is my smallest number? 806 versus 860. So my first number is 2.806. What's my second smallest number? 860. So 2.86. What's my next smallest number? 2.9, and 4.4 is, of course, practically its own outlier. It's so big. And then to wrap up, almost ran out of room, 3.5061. So that's a lot of zeros we're going to be adding. So 5, 6, 3.6, and then 2.812. That one's obviously the smallest number because it starts with a 2, so 2.812. What's my next smallest number? Is going to be one of the, I'm reading, so here's what my brain is doing. My brain is reading those as 5,000s, and which one is smaller? The 5,061. So 3.5061. And actually, isn't that correct? That would be 3 and 5,061 10,000ths. Okay, so my brain is reading it correctly. It just sounds weird when you say it out loud. Then you have the 3.56 and the 3.6. Next, 3.62, 2.603, 2.63, and then 2.9. So the 3 is obviously the biggest number because it starts with a 3 when everything else starts with a 6. So we can cross that off. Then which one is smaller? We have 900, 630, and 603. 603 is the smallest number. And then we have the 630, so 2.63. And then we round off with the 2.9. So those are all of your basics for decimals. That was a lot to sort of cover in one video, and I'm terrified that I did a poor job of explaining it. Hopefully this will help you go through it. The next one and the last family, at last, the end of the goal, family 9, we're going to deal with all of these decimals with addition and subtraction. So we'll see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and transmission.